Thank you guys. Thank you, WeFranch. It's so nice of everyone to join me here. Appreciate you taking the time today. I have a quick kind of slide deck that I'm going to go over that you can kind of see on your screen now. But as mentioned, feel free to drop some questions into the Q&A, and I left plenty of time to go over it at the end. So thanks again, and hopefully this is pretty informative for everyone. So who am I? My name's Jackie. I'm here at Area 2 Farms. I'm the head of business operations and franchising. So, what that means is I actually oversee the farm team here. I'm in the work every day, and I'm working with all of our future farmers. So whenever I say, that we've done it, we're doing it, I do mean even myself, kind of growing, planning, harvesting, all of the above. So anything that we kind of do here on the farm in Arlington, Virginia is what we're looking to do kind of everywhere. And that's why we're franchising it. And yes, that is my dog. And that's how you know that, truly committed to being a farmer every single day. So kind of what got Area 2 Farms started is, there's a broken food chain in our system. I think you probably heard some of the news recently that there's been a salmonella outbreak with jalapenos. There's been cyclospora on some of the lettuces. And, those are two completely different crops, two completely different places that they originated from, but it all kind of boils down to your food has to go through many stages before it actually makes it to your plate. And it's kind of our entire case for why we believe that farms should be smaller, closer, and accessible to people in their neighborhoods. And so Area 2 Farms it's been working towards that for the last few years. And how we're doing that is by moving the farms themselves and not the food. So we're building these kind of direct farms where you don't need an open field, you don't need hundreds of acres. You just are looking for a place that is accessible to your neighbors. You're growing USDA certified organic. You grow in soil. You're not shipping from person to person. You're not distributing. You're not trying to go into the grocery store. And you're not just a cog in a supply chain. You are the person that is in your neighborhood. You're the person that people know, and you're a trusted source for the vegetables that you're growing. And so how we do that, there's three things that we believe make this work. So, I mentioned I'm here in Arlington Farm. So I'm in a warehouse in Arlington, Virginia. Those of you familiar with Washington, D.C. area, we're just outside Washington, D.C. in Shirlington, Virginia. And we're in a warehouse. So what we do is we look for 3,500 to 5 foot square feet of space underutilized. Think of our second farm is actually going on a prior gas station site that hasn't been used for 32 years. Older warehouses, or we've seen a couple like breweries that might have gone out of business, but would be great to have a farm in there. And so just looking for that space that is kind of closer to people, a little bit more where people could walk in and have a farm nearby, and isn't too, doesn't have to be Main Street type of scenario. And then the farm itself, like I mentioned, we're a soil-based farm. So we grow in soil, we produce USDA certified organic crops, and we do a full market basket. And what that means is we're not just doing a single crop. We're not just going for, the spinach. We're going for mixed greens of number of varieties. I think we have about 40 varieties of lettuces that we grow here. We're looking at herbs, so a good number of herbs. Root vegetables. So the benefit of soil is that we do get to create root vegetables. So think beets and turnips and things like that. And then some specialty items. So some things that you wouldn't see in your average farm, because we don't have to grow for shipping. We grow for the person coming in the very next day. And then how we kind of get that out to our community. The business itself is made of three kind of pillars. So we have our CSA subscriptions, where we have our members subscribe for 4-week, 10-week, or 10-week reoccurring kind of subscriptions. And each week they're getting a harvest bag filled with those items I mentioned, and coming in and picking it up week after week. We have B2B accounts. So we grow up to 10,000 pounds of microgreens in our system every single week that we sell directly to catering companies, or to a lot of restaurants, or, golf courses and things like that. Those types of people are always great, but it's still a recurring kind of account that you have with somebody within like a close locality of your farm. And then the last is our farm stand. So right up front, you have items to sell everything from your rebagged soil, which I'll get to in a second, to working with other farmers. We have a beekeeper here in Arlington we work with who produces local honey that we're able to package up and resell for them. So kind of three ways that you are able to generate that revenue here. And the kind of key, as I mentioned a few times, is our technology. We're not going to be this hyper exclusive and super, niche type of systems. We have kind of two main tenets of our technology. So we have something called Silo. Silo is a system where, and you can kind of see it behind me here, there's plants in totes here. And what happens is the plants just move through the system themselves. Within that system, they're going to get watered. They're going to go through, find some light throughout it, and then come back down and kind of keep that airflow going. And so it's not a highly, you don't have to be touching everything every single day. The system that kind of consistently runs, keeps things going, keeps it watered, keeps it lit in the appropriate way. And that's going to give you a vast majority of your CSA kind of basket. We grow in soil for a reason. A lot of indoor and vertical farms do hydroponics, and they're looking for kind of, extraordinary yields by doing that. And we found that soil is more resilient. It's great to make sure that you're consistently generating your crops without kind of some of the intrusions that can come through. And then the other kind of key to this is, as a business, you can actually take the soil that you're using. We reuse our soil in our silo system over and over. So you're not kind of tossing it out the door. You're not just creating an extra waste product. And then our kind of other soil that we use for our microgreen system, we actually compost on site, and you're able to repackage and resell to your, we sell to Ace Hardware, or you can package it up and pick it up at the farm for your local gardeners and things like that. And that's actually that picture that you see. That's our Area 2 Farms kind of potting soil ready to go for someone to purchase from our farm stand. And, we're growing a variety of items. So I mentioned we don't monocrop here. We're not just looking for one and kind of to take over that space in a grocery store. You're growing for your neighbor. So you're growing those root vegetables, those herbs, those greens, everything side by side, and giving them that full kind of abundant basket each time. So every week you're putting those items in, you're pulling items out, and each week they have a consistent variety of items that they can receive. So how do you do this? So this is kind of where, I think the nitty gritty gets to come into play. You're not doing this alone. Our farms are a team. So as I mentioned, I do oversee the farm team here in Arlington, Virginia, and each of our farms is kind of set up to run with a series of maybe 6 to 8 team members. You're going to have seasonal friends who are going to kind of come in and out of your farm. You'll have farm hands who are going to do the seeding, the transplanting, kind of the repetitious work. And then farmers who usually have a knowledge level a little bit above that, and they know, watching for certain items that we've trained and guided on by plant, IPM, which is our internal pest management. So they're trained highly on making sure that you're keeping up with that every day. But each of those roles has a really clear responsibility, and each of those roles is important. And so, how you kind of make sure that they're staying on task, and why we believe like a franchise system is great is there's an operation manual, there's a library of SOPs. Everything has been done here. We've tried a lot of things, some of them amazing and some of them not so great. And we've gathered the best of the best to make sure that we have very clear paths for how you can get things done and always have the right things growing and growing them successfully. So when we say we're not necessarily looking for farmers, we're looking for operators, it's true. We're really trying to find the people who are able to take these playbooks, take these operational guides and execute on them, check their lists every single day and make sure that they're being successful, and knowing that if you're doing that, you will have an abundant farm, successful farm. And, I think the other key is that we really built this to create a farmer as, a treasured position again. So it's not just, some guy growing the food. It's somebody in your community who is learning, who is a source of knowledge, and who is somebody you want to talk to every time you see them. So what are you doing as a head farmer? You oversee your team, but our weeks are pretty similar week to week. So, it starts with harvest. Every Monday here at the farm, we're harvesting everything we need for the rest of the week. It's a very high energy day. It's a very labor intensive day. It's probably my favorite day, even though it's a longer day. It's Monday here, and we always have the music kind of blasting back there. Everybody kind of knows exactly what they need to get done, pulling the totes out, getting it harvested, getting it packed, and getting everything ready for our B2B clients as well as our CSA members, making sure the bags are packed and set up, ready to go. And then after you're done harvesting and packing, you're kind of resetting the system. So your soil needs to be taken care of. As I mentioned, we compost on site. So you're kind of getting the totes emptied out. You're filling them up with the soil that you already composted the previous week. You're seeding things. You're transplanting some of the more mature plants back into the system. You're doing everything that kind of keeps the farm moving. And our farms are always growing. So it's not a matter of you grow for like 4 weeks, you empty it out, and then you grow. You're emptying, growing all at the same time. But the nice thing is you really have that schedule set. We have made sure that it's very followable, that it's very clear exactly what you need to get done each day to make sure that your system is running at full speed. And then the last thing you're doing is really doing the community connection. My second favorite part of the week is I have a couple of my favorite CSA members. They're coming in, they're picking up their bags for the week. You're talking to them. You're making those connections that farms out in the middle of nowhere will never be able to really get. They don't see the end product of who they're getting their food to. And here we have that clear connection every time. And so, it's just a great way to make sure that you are not just some farm, it's their farm, and that you're really with them side by side. So just a little bit more in depth about exactly what that looks like. Like I said, that harvest day is really kind of like, it's either your endpoint or your starting point, however you look at it. You're growing every single week. You're keeping that standard. You're making sure the products look great. And again, every single step of this has a guidance to it. So whether it's how much you should be packing to, what that bag should look like, exactly which crops are coming out, we've tried and tested and gotten kind of the best and ideal for you. The soil and crop operations, you're walking the systems, you're checking it, you have your maintenance checklist, you have your seeding checklist, you're making sure that everything is being done appropriately, whether it's you or your team kind of getting through it every single day. And then you're connecting with your community. So as I mentioned, you're kind of bringing folks in for tours. I think that the key for this, though, is to really think of it as, every harvest, every pickup, every conversation is another touch point you're having with folks that they wouldn't have otherwise. And it's really kind of creating that aspect of the farm is a part of the community. There's, your Starbucks or your local coffee shop. There's your favorite butcher. I go to my butcher all the time. And now, I have my farm and I go to that farm and I talk to those people. And so I think that's like the key to kind of cutting out that supply chain is creating that connection and really being part of that local community. And actually, let me go back one more time. The other thing I like to point out here is, a lot of people say, well, what about like farmers markets? Why wouldn't they just go there? Farmers markets are very exclusive time slots. Here in Alexandria, we have, I actually live in Old Town Alexandria in, just over there. And it's the oldest running farmers market in America. So it is a very popular farmers market. It's open for 5 hours on Sunday. And I half the time cannot make it because I have other stuff I have to get done. And so by having a farm closer, you aren't limited to that little window of you must make it to that. And you can come by, you can go in, you can grab it anytime. I harvested it, Monday, and it's ready to go Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, whenever you'd like. And it's still way fresher than what I would get at the grocery store. So, it's another kind of huge benefit of having the farm close. You don't get limited and you don't get kind of pushed out by accessibility. And the last point I'm going to kind of really touch in on is how the team supports you. So here at Area 2 Farms, we're not just here to kind of give you the ops manual and then say, run it and go find a site. We have structured training before you open. You're on site here with our team in Arlington for at least a week, if not more. We're down there with you when you're kind of going from pre-opening site selection to right before you open to a few days after you open. And then, we're there with you every step of the way. So it's not just a, set it and forget it type of thing. We want to make sure that you're succeeding. Our supply chain, we have a affiliate, Farms to Farmers, that is going to make sure you have the appropriate seeds, soil, nutrients, all of the costs that make it a very, viable and well-run business. So you don't have to really think, if you ever picked up a seed guide, there's a company called Johnny's Seeds, and they have a book that's about this thick. And they will tell you, go find a chart out of there. you're going to get about 80 options. So by having kind of known, well-performing and great tasting and well-received by our members kind of selection, you're always getting what works really well. And then that SOP. So you have a guide to every single task. There's nothing that you have to guess at. There's nothing you have to learn. And with plants, there's still always going to be a little bit of, fun involved. They're living things. We learn a lot from them, but at least you're consistently getting the things that you need out of kind of our processes, and that if you're following them, you're going to do well. And that's kind of like a backing of support that you don't get when you're going through other farms. So I always like to say, yes, you have a manual and yes, you have a guide, but you will have that backing kind of and that confidence that you probably won't get by trying to just kind of go it alone. So with all those things, you basically have that vision. We'll always stick to our mission. We want to make food accessible. We want to get a farm within 10 miles of 90% of Americans. We really want to be the farmer of the community. The operations and franchising, we're not just saying do this. We're doing it here every day with you. And we're finding great farmers, to be our owner operators, not just anybody who might have the money. We want to find people who really want to be part of kind of that vision and that mission. We have a wonderful team behind us who is kind of documenting every single crop, trying new crops, trying to find the best things that our members are asking for, that our other farmers are asking for, and making sure that we're not just throwing it in, but we're, developing the step-by-step process so that you can also grow it super successfully. And then we're there with you in the marketing and the community, and we go on the ground and build that local awareness, grow your membership base. Our kind of key is that we don't open a farm at 0 shares sold. We're actually opening a farm at least half full, if not much more. The 90-day window to get to open is really when our team is ready to help you sell, get those members signed up, and get you, successful in running full speed from day one. So with all that said, if you haven't already, this is kind of our journey that we have for any potential farm owner. Go to beafarmer.com, fill out the inquiry form. You'll have a call with, and no AI here. You have a call with myself, Oren, who is our founder, and or Connor does a lot of our calls, and he's one of our lead farmers. So he's also a great kind of source of how do you do this. We go through the FDD review. We actually have you come on site. We do a farm day. I get a little free labor out of people who come onto my farm for the day. We talk through everything. You meet the team. You actually get to taste, a lot of the products that you'll be growing. And then you get your agreement done, and we start into the training, the site selection, and the kind of marketing kind of plan out for you. And so with that, I would love to answer a lot of questions, and let's go from there.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jacque. This was amazing. And we're getting some pretty specific questions. So yeah, for the audience, feel free to drop more questions as we go along. But the first one is, how large is the protected territory for the farm?
So we have it set as a 10-mile radius from where your doors are for your farm. So, right now we're looking for farmers in kind of specific areas. Think larger cities, Austin, Texas, Dallas, Texas, Miami, Florida, things like that. But wherever the site is that you end up selecting, you have that 10-mile radius around it that is yours and yours alone. So and obviously we're always open to chat, but that is your kind of your space to be working with. And that's where you're going to find your customers too. Our average customer is 2.3 miles from this farm. So your farm doesn't need to go too far to look, but it definitely helps to know that's kind of where you're looking at.
Awesome. So Stu is asking, are the farms USDA AG approved? Does the new farmer need to do all the state and local regulatory approvals, or does Area 2 Farms have it all figured out before they open up a territory?
Yeah, we're with you every step of the way. We know exactly what we need to do those approvals. Your USDA certified organic status is something we absolutely, we're the distributor to make sure that you can maintain that status, and we give you kind of clear guidance on what you need to record. And then for the actual registering your farm number, things like that, yeah, we are there. We give the very clear process. We have a step-by-step guide to make sure that your farm is fully registered. And even at the state and local level, yeah, we definitely have kind of, this is how you should do it. This is kind of where you go, and this is how we get you registered. And that is all part of our kind of onboarding process with anyone post-franchise agreement. We get that kind of all set up and lined up for you.
Awesome. So there's kind of like a follow-up question from Stu. So Could we open more than one farm in that 10-mile radius zone? Since the customers are 2.4 miles away, we could open 3 or 4.
Yeah, absolutely. Our kind of vision is, and we're doing it here. What happened was we sold out our farm here. So we kind of reached our capacity on our growth. We reached our capacity on our customers. And so we're opening our second farm. I think it's about 4 or 5 miles away, because of that capacity. So we do envision, especially with some of these larger markets, that a lot of our farmers will, reach that capacity pretty quickly and want to open that second farm, a few miles away, and then want to open that third one. And each farm actually kind of renews that radius. So it's not intentional to sell this as like 80 farms all of a sudden and you have to develop them. It's truly to build one at a time, get our owners really successful, and then have them kind of build 2 or 3 within that area.
Cool. Stu says, excellent answer. Thank you. So another question from Narayan. So it has several parts, but it's mainly about site selection. So
Yeah.
what kind of help do you guys provide? What are the minimum facility requirements in terms of water, light, security? Is there like any rough economics per square unit to make the area to farms location work?
I would say so the basics of what you're looking for, as I mentioned, that 3,500 to 5,000 square feet. The actual growing space is the 3,500. The extra space there is for like the farm stand and kind of a little bit more of a workspace and things like that. But you can fit a farm itself, our silo system, our microgreen system within that kind of square footage. You're looking for 18-foot ceilings. I encourage you to look up the video of our silo. That is exactly why you need an 18-foot ceiling. Because those plants are moving through a system, and the whole thing is that it is about 10 degrees hotter at the top. And so it actually saves on energy costs that way by creating this kind of recreating an actual cycle of light rising, heat rising, and things like that. So that's why you're looking for those 18-foot ceilings. Standard water and energy hookups. You don't need anything kind of specialized in that way. Like I said, we're in I think this used to be like not a paper warehouse, but it used to be something else warehouse. We didn't kind of adjust anything there. It's just standard hookups. We run on city water. We don't have any special filtrations or anything like that we need to build in. And really the key is that you're looking for that space to, again, be slightly accessible. So for us, we're between a dog park. We have a lot of car repair shops, and then we have the restaurants nearby. We have a lot of people nearby. So people walk through here all the time. So we're kind of accessible, and that's what you're looking for. And then security, again, nothing special. It's a quick lock. It's a quick, we literally just lock our doors at night. There's stuff growing outside. If somebody comes by and takes a few leaves of basil, I don't think we'll notice, but definitely nothing kind of unique in that way. And then for help, yes, we're there to help you out. We have kind of a partner broker who goes out and looks for sites ahead of time as well, but encourage you to start thinking about the places in your community that maybe you kind of pass by often and just don't have anything in it, right? There's just those places everywhere, empty lots, big buildings that just you haven't seen anybody active in a couple years. And those are the buildings that could be a farm. And you never thought about it as a farm before, but knowing that you can fit into it, you can be a farm.
And we'll move on to the other questions, but something that comes to my mind. So like, when we saw people registering for the webinar, we saw someone from Australia, someone from Georgia. So you guys definitely like generate that international interest, but I'm curious, in terms of like site selection, and obviously you have your target areas of growth, but kind of like how replicable is the model for people in other countries?
Yeah, that's something we haven't tested yet. I want to say for sure, we're really looking to go, we're US based first, and we're going into various like certain cities right now, as I kind of mentioned. But this shouldn't be so unique and so hard to obtain that we couldn't, eventually expand international or get that same model kind of footprint over and over again. If we can do it over and over here, there's no reason why not. The farm isn't some crazy technology thing. It's not like you need special chips or special, guidance or anything like that. It's just we know how to get USDA certified. We worked with our kind of state and local folks, and so definitely America kind of the key, but very replicable, and why we decided to franchise it so that we could get farmers everywhere and into their community.
Awesome. So now we're nearing two other questions, basically about startup capital and then profitability. So I'll start with the startup upfront capital requirements, and then Stu has specific questions. So is it an SBA approved business? Does Area to Farms qualify as an agriculture business to banks, SBA, U.S. Department of Agriculture for grants, loans, lines of credits?
Yeah. So I'll start with the startup kind of cost. So if you're familiar with franchising, I think everyone here probably has at least touched on it, but if not, always happy to have another call and explain some of this. But our franchise fee is 45,000, and our initial investment range is going to be the 307,000 to $471,000. That range is typically based upon your site. So, if you're going into somewhere in the middle of New York City, it's going to be a little bit pricier probably to find a space than somewhere maybe just outside of, the Miami market in maybe Boca Raton or something like that. And then the silo systems themselves. So that's a pretty big chunk of our cost because those are the hardware that's going to run your farm. And you're buying 3 or 4 of those. And so you can see that be affected by if you decide to do 3, you're looking at, 250, 350 customers. If you decide to do 4, you're looking at that 300 to 400 kind of consistent members coming through. Just depends on that sizing there. And then the smaller part of where this investment goes is the 3 months of running cost. So your labor, your cost of goods, all the seeds, all the soil, all the equipment to get your farm running outside of silo is going to be in that like 100,000 of that initial investment range. So just some numbers to kind of keep in mind there for that. And then we are, we actually have a team that will help you kind of create a business plan for the SBA should you kind of work with us and sign the franchise agreement. We do have a team behind to help out with that. We are SBA friendly. And in fact, I don't know if people follow the SBA news too closely, but they now back agricultural programs in which we qualify for grocery programs at a 90%. So that's actually 15% more than your typical kind of SBA backing. So it's a positive kind of extra item that we are a unique business and we're a needed business and people are demanding it. And so it's just another motivation for, getting the money and feeling secure in that investment.
Awesome. And then the next question is, so is it a 12-month business because it's indoors? Is there any consistently profitable months or is it like a seasonal, is there some level of seasonality?
Yeah. No, we grow year round. The only week that we don't put out harvest bags here in Arlington is Christmas week. Maybe people aren't thinking about their health and all the kind of food that they should be eating at that point, or the vegetables, or they're for us, there's just a lot of people out of town. But we do grow year round. We see a very consistent business, and I think that is actually powered by the fact that we do grow consistent bags, right? So we're always giving you that kind of mixed greens. We're always giving you the herbs. We're always giving you the root vegetables and the microgreens. And that consistency actually creates that loyalty. And so when somebody wants a little bit more of a seasonal item, they can still get it, but they're not going to go try to find lettuces somewhere else just because now it's summer. I'm going to go get my lettuce blend from something else. I still have what I need every single week coming to me from my local farm. So we do a little bit of seasonal trending in what we're growing. So we might do a little bit more cabbage in the winter and when there's like a stew season, a little more carroty. We do zucchini squash here in the summer just to have it. You're growing year round, you're growing those items, and the business itself stays very consistent through that subscription kind of model where people are always kind of coming in and making sure they're getting their bags every single week.
And then Narayan is asking, what's been the difficult parts now or earlier in the Area to Farms journey?
Yeah. I mean, there's always going to be growing pains, and that's why we wanted to get the model right. If you actually saw this whole warehouse, I'm sitting in like 12,000 square feet, I think, because we didn't know exactly how tight we could get it and what size we needed. And so we probably got a little too much space. So that was our first kind of pain, is now we're in a large kind of space, and our farm is really in just a small part of it. So kind of learning through that. I think the difficult part for me on the day-to-day is just making sure that I'm always keeping the farmer in my mind. I sometimes can get into it and I'll start to kind of learn things, and I want to make sure that I'm keeping that information accessible and clear for every future farmer that comes behind me. Um, I think a pain might be the learning which items grow in our systems well versus what doesn't. As I mentioned, you can see behind me, these are totes. There's a height limit, and sometimes when we tried to do some tomatoes and they started to get up into the lights and crawling through, not great. Versus now we kind of have a very clear idea of what works and what doesn't. And when we're doing our R&D and when we're, breeding new type of items to grow in our system, we have a very clear plan and guidance of what will kind of go in well and how do we make sure it, again, we've been working on a certain breed of like strawberry for a while, and let me tell you, some of them can taste bad. And I didn't know a strawberry could taste that bad until, we did that. But really, I think like the key to remember is that we're not putting out a farm that is going to have all that kind of push and shove anymore. What we know and the feedback that our future farmers can give us get to help influence what comes next. And they don't have to kind of experience that alone and then try to figure out how do I grow this squash on my own farm. We work with you, we test it, we put it through our trials, we have the team and science behind there that you would never have alone, that maybe we can make something work at some point, or at least give you guidance. Or maybe we say, hey, here's how we would grow it outside, and you have an outside bed that you want to kind of finagle around with, and somebody can come in and check it out, and you're not going to take a huge loss on it by just kind of trying over and over and over again and failing. Without any background knowledge, or just reading a textbook or watching a YouTube video. You have a team that's actually doing it in the same system that you're doing it in every day.
So building up on that question, so why is area to farms working when, there have been a lot of attempts, like Bowery being maybe the most famous one. So how does the model work successfully as opposed to this?
Yeah. There was another one that just went, and it happens. And these are well-funded ventures. And I would never say that, they're every time somebody doesn't succeed, we take learnings from it. But I think the key to area to farms is we're not actually twofold. We're not growing for distribution. So all those places, we're still growing a massive amount of food to still ship it somewhere else. They weren't just going into the grocery store next to them, which is also what you don't want to do, but they were trying to ship it from Cincinnati all the way to New York City. And that doesn't take away the supply chain. It doesn't take away all those extra costs that continue to build up. I think even in those systems, the yields have to be so extraordinary that to make the money back and to be a successful by the footprint, right? And so how we believe that we're really successful is we're not going into grocery stores. We're selling directly to our customers. So the farmer is taking home every, excess money on that dollar. If you actually look at traditional farming, I think it's down to 11 cents per dollar that the farmer physically takes from everything they grow. And we're cutting out all those steps along the way. And then we're not giant, we're growing for our 10-mile radius. We're growing for those 300 to 400 customers. We're growing for a few, restaurant clients. And when we do that, you're ensuring that you're not trying to, create this never-ending yield problem and never-ending sizing problem and staffing, and if something fails, right? So it's a very right-sized type of farm to succeed as a business, and not just as this let's disrupt everything and try to grow everything separately. And listen, we're never going to replace the grocery store. There's still plenty of goods that need to come out of that, but people care about what they're eating. People care about the nutrients they're getting. Again, we're going through cyclospora and all that. And I think there's probably 10 different news stations that want to come and check out the farm because small farms don't have that problem. We're not having all those issues and safety and all that kind of stuff. So just by right sizing it, by getting it directly to the customers and taking out all that middle kind of stuff really makes it a stronger business than some of these bigger folks that you've seen kind of in the news lately.
Yeah, that's a very interesting answer. I'll just chip in that's kind of like the power of franchising. So when the experience and the product can only be delivered locally, so that the local operator is the driver of it. If you can order something online from Amazon, you're not gonna need the local operator, but in all other cases, it's the main person. And a question I personally had, so yeah, from kind of reviewing people who joined the webinar today, it seems like everyone's very passionate about quality food, organic food, ownership. So I'm curious, who's the profile of the franchisee that you're looking for, and especially with a like 90-day window to opening. So
Yeah.
is that someone who's working a job? Are they looking to leave their job and kind of like start this process? Is it happening concurrently? So yeah, any thoughts, and kind of like what is their involvement, let's say once the farm is established, it's up and running, like how much time does it take? Yeah.
Yeah, we're looking for committed, mission-driven, but smart people and operators who do have a passion for better food, better quality food, for kind of bringing farming back as a true business and not just as this kind of thing, right? And leading up to your farm opening, absolutely. I think I've talked to people from all walks of life at this point, to who want to kind of get and own their own farm, of people who've been urban gardeners, people who have land, acres and acres, but they couldn't make it work. So now they're like, maybe this is how I kind of make it work too. Great, just operational experience. Everyone from Coca-Cola to people who run UPS stores to people who've been in other franchises and have successfully run those and are just looking for something different and something a little more meaningful, and definitely a lot of corporate burnouts. So I think the number one kind of item is that people want to escape and want to actually work within the soil, and that's who we're looking for. We don't want people who are trying to just sit behind a laptop and run some numbers and maybe send people out. I think there is a place for that, but that's not our farmers. Our farmers are people who want to come into their farm, talk to their members who are in the business kind of day to day. That's not to say it's taken over your whole life and that 90 plus hours are spent on the farm. We have about 200-ish labor hours budgeted out that we have here on the farm. I'm not here 80 hours a day or anything like that, but it is a full-time job and it's a full-time business and it is a small business. And so you do have to have a little passion. You do have to care. You do want to talk to people. You do want to run a team and make sure that they're doing the things correctly every single day. So leading up to the farm opening, I think it is start planning the exit strategy from your job. And when your farm opens, you are all in and you are ready to kind of commit and be that farmer and want to be that person who is there on the day to day. And I get excited by coming to this farm every day, and I would expect every one of our owner operators to get excited to be touching their plants and eating their harvest, kind of taking their mint and throwing it into their water bottle like I do every morning, directly from their own farm.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I think we'll give people a chance to submit any final questions if they have any. And Jacque, I don't know if we missed anything you want to add, like final kind of like words to the audience. We'll definitely make sure to share the link. So beafarmer.com. That's where you, I believe, like request the call with Jacque to, talk specifically about your situation, your background, like your territory. But yeah, this was super informative.
Okay, I know that we're unique. I've been kind of going to all the franchising conferences and talking to a lot of people, and there's so much excitement around something like this. And so I know a lot of people get really excited about it. So my suggestion is to like talk with us and learn as much as you can, because I think the more you see it, the more you interact, the more that you come onto this farm, the more you see this is something that happens and this can change it. And it's not these big stories of giant farms that are failing. This is a business within the community where farming is kind of the staple and you get to do something different, and that excites me. And so I hope that the people here today and any future farmer is just as excited and ready to go and get on farm and see me and chat with me.
Sure. And what's kind of like the biggest misconception that you see in people that you speak with about area to farms?
Yeah. And I'm going to put this in the nicest way possible. And I think this is only because we have set our systems up to be repeatable. Everyone thinks farming is impossible. Like it's just super hard. And it is. I will say farming is extremely hard. Being an area 2 farmer is not about trying to diagnose every little thing and figure out what you're supposed to be selling and trying to troubleshoot a crop failure or go out into your field at 4 in the morning and have to figure out if somebody's spray came over, right? Traditional farming is extremely hard, and the people who do it are really great and doing it. Being an area 2 farmer means that you are just passionate, you care, you can run a team, you can understand how a business runs, and you want to do that day in day out. And it's not about having to have all that kind of knowledge and that tradition behind you. It's about being, a good a steward of wanting to change something, and just being there is kind of the key for us.
Right. Another question we often get is, so in terms of, you mentioned like hiring a team. So anything you can share about that? So let's say, the location is up and running, like how many people are you looking to hire? How many, like, are they full-on staff members? Are they hourly employees? Like, how does that work?
Our team here is 6 to 8 people at any given time. I have one lead farmer who has been here about a year and a half now. They're really great at making sure my seeding schedule is correct, the transplanting is being done, all the things that I said that are on checklist are getting done day in and day out. And is a great source of knowledge and kind of knows and has a great grasp of the farm. Then I have 2 full-time farmers. So those are folks who are, again, here, 40 hours a week, are able to answer any question about what's going on and growing. They're also leading the tours. They're also kind of working with us to get the CSA bags out. They're kind of, doing anything and everything when it comes to that. And then training up our farm hands. So our farm hands are part-timers. They're kind of a little bit more flexible. They're doing the direct seeding every single time. They're transplanting. They're doing a little bit more of the monotonous work. They're doing dishes and all that kind of stuff. And my previous careers were running a lot of, if anyone ever heard of Pinkberry, I was the one who was in DC, in the DC area, working and opening those Pinkberries for the owner here. And the difference for the people that work on these farms is there is an actual passion. You get to find people who are mission driven, who have a passion. And I think that's really hard to find in a lot of QSR and a lot of retail. And so it already gives you kind of that leg up. And so the people, when you say you're hiring and looking for farmers, they come. And there's just a lot of people who want to do this job and who really enjoy this job, and who, any type of hours that you want to give them, they're kind of happy to just experience something different. So the walks of life are kind of all over the place. We get, again, everybody coming from PhD students in soil sciences to just some college kids who might have an interest in biology, or who home gardeners who were like, I can't figure this out in my home, but I really enjoy doing this. Can I make this a job? And we get those guys, and you're not going to kind of get that elsewhere. So you're just looking at getting a handful of folks, getting the training done, leading them, and making sure that what you're doing day in and day out is standard and processed and going through it every single